First thing I did was kind of research and see and get ideas for a sensory garden because it's something we'd never done. I knew what it was, but I never really dug into it. So we went into it and kind of looked at what plant options and a good layout, and we had to kind of tailor it to our climate and what would work here, and trying to get color each season year round so that there's always something blooming or some type of attraction plant for each season. So when you first come in the archway, we put the archway here just because we wanted an official entrance to the garden. And then we have the jasmine that's going to cover this archway. And that jasmine is very fragrant, so it just gives you that, that nice smell as you walk in, and it's going to be covered over, and just kind of when you go through it, it's kind of like you're entering the garden. So that's where that choice came from. On the garden, we decided to do all river rock just to give it something that you don't see a lot, and then it's also a lower maintenance option. So that's why we did the river rock. So as you go to the left when you come through the entrance, you've got some lavender down at the bottom right against the sidewalk. The lavender will be another aromatic plant that's going to flower later in the summer. It'll have nice purple blooms coming up from it. Behind it, you've got a Ruby Falls redbud, which is something you don't see a lot, but we wanted something with that purple texture, and it's a weeping tree, so it's not going to get very large to kind of anchor the front corner. And then you come up to the bubbling boulder, and behind that we've got a Japanese maple, some ornamental grasses, and then to each side, those are black-eyed Susans, which will be flowering yellow in the middle of summer, June, July time period. So as you come on down, then you've got some dwarf butterfly bushes that are purple flowering. We kind of tied the butterfly theme in, since Monarch's logo is the monarch butterfly. So that's kind of why we've got a lot of pollinator plants that butterflies like. Hopefully we can attract some butterflies in here. So that's kind of why we went with those. And then behind that you have loropetalums, which will give you that kind of ruby color. They'll also flower pink early in the spring. And behind those you have the row of tea olives, which what we did, we put those there as kind of a screen, so they'll eventually make a wall, so it kind of blocks the parking lot off, so that you feel secluded in the garden. They're also fragrant, so they'll smell nice twice a year, early spring and then again in the fall. So we try to use a lot of things that would kind of get the senses going with different leaf textures and scents in the garden at different times of the year. And then in the back you've got a row of, these are a dwarf magnolia called Little Jim. They'll kind of block off the street view. So we wanted to break it up and put something different. They'll grow like 10 to 12 feet tall, and then you get the nice white flowers on those spring and summer as well. So that's kind of where that choice came in. They wanted water, the sound of water in the garden. So we did this pondless waterfall here, and with that we decided to do kind of evergreens and give it maybe like a mountainy feel when it's grown up. So behind it you've got Hinoki cypress, which will grow up. They're the lighter green ones. And then you've got the juniper around it to just try to kind of give it a different feel in this corner of the garden. Is the reason we went with that. So, but we positioned the benches in the garden so that either you hear the bubbling boulder on one side or the waterfall on the other side. So that's kind of how we determined where we set those. And we had a little elevation here so that we could kind of build this into the side of the hill on this part of the garden. So, and then the wind sculptures came from, it's called Lyman Whitaker Studios. This guy, he builds these out of copper. He builds each one individually. So that's where the two wind sculptures came from. We wanted something in there that would kind of move when the wind blew to just give you a little, something to catch your eye. And I thought that the copper went well with the river rock kind of look. So that's why we went with those. And wanted to make the larger one kind of a centerpiece of the garden. So that's why it's on the circle in the center. So as you go around, you got a coral bark maple in the back, which is the green leaf Japanese maple. Behind that there's a couple blueberry bushes tucked in with some more loropetalums and ornamental grasses. And then against the sidewalk you have dianthus, which are probably the first things that bloom here, along with the red buds. They're right against the sidewalk. They'll stay green year round and have little pink flowers in the summer. And then behind those you have viburnum, which is also another plant that's going to get a little larger to kind of block out the driveway on this side, and they'll flower later in the summer. And as you get closer to the selfie wall, you have, these are called firelight hydrangeas. Quick Fire is that variety. They're going to be a large sun-loving hydrangea, so they'll get up about 5 to 6 feet tall. And the goal with those was to kind of anchor each side of the selfie wall. So once they get up, you'll have nice flowers on each side of the selfie wall that kind of go with that. And with the selfie wall, there again, we went with the Monarch butterfly to kind of tie that into everything that goes in. And we wanted it to be kind of, I don't know how to explain it, kind of fun and funky and have a lot of color to it to kind of brighten things up, especially in the wintertime out here. So that's why we went with the bright colors in the background and everything on it. So. And then in the center, back at the entrance, you have, this is called Bath's Pink Dianthus. As soon as you come in, the little smaller green-gray foliage. That's a perennial it won't die back in the winter, so that'll be there year-round. On either side of it, you have your dwarf butterfly bushes with some larger butterfly bushes. And then we've got some cryptomeria in the center, which is the dark green shrub. We just kind of put that in there to once it grows out, to kind of separate the entrance side from the other side where the sculpture is. There's some lamb's ear around the edge, which has a cool texture for people, along with some more black-eyed Susans and some lavender on that side of it. And then outside of the garden, in the raised bed, that's an herb garden. So in the herb garden, we did that because those are plants that people can taste, smell. They'll have different flowers, and they're very drought tolerant, so they would work well in this area. So in the center, you've got a rosemary. Around that, you have sage. And then down the center, it's lavender, and on the outside edges, that is creeping thyme. So that'll eventually kind of creep over and cover that area. So that's what we did with this area, was just try to put something different that was drought tolerant and have a little herb garden kind of incorporated in.